All right, it looks like we got it figured out here, and we're coming back to order. It is 1:19. We are now on our timed item for 6.6, 1 o'clock. Consideration of initiating discussions with City of Clear Lake delegation to discuss potential changes to governance model for Lac-Osan, and this is sponsored by Supervisor Sabatier and Supervisor Owen. Who I give the floor to?
So I'll go ahead and get started. Back in April of 2024, there was a resolution which was attached to the item coming from the City Council asking the Board of Directors of Lac-Osan to open up discussions and looking at a potential of change to governance model. Nothing is suggested specifically as to what that looks like. There's there's going to be some options out there, but I want to at least bring it to the board. We spoke, Supervisor Owen and myself, with the city, also with the administrative office, just bringing it for opening of dialogue, not opening for a specific outcome. There was a request, and we have yet to respond to that request, and I had at least wanted to give them the respect of getting a response from us and hoping that we open up the dialogue to see what's possible. This came about, obviously there was some issues in the year past before that. There have been many ongoing issues in the Highlands Harbor area where that's kind of the low point of the system. There was about 1 million gallons. I think it was actually about 600,000 when you add up the years. It was about 1 million gallons of raw sewage that was leaked out, and some of it had gone into the lake. There has been a different conversation and relationship today between the county and the city that I think is offering hope and light at the end of the tunnel for some of these issues. However, structures shouldn't be based on individuals that are there. Structures should be based on what's best for long-term facilitating of co-mingling processes such as a sewer system within the same, that is controlled by a county within a city district. So again, looking to open up that dialogue and see where it goes and bringing it back whatever options comes from those discussions. I want to make sure Supervisor Owen adds anything that she feels might be missing from that discussion.
I'm still just, nope, I think we can go forward.
All right, so I don't know if I just opened it up for questions. I think, Vice Chair, you look like you have your pen ready.
I'll go ahead and wait until we get public time.
Okay, so, yes.
And we do have City Manager Flora as well as Mayor Kramer that is here in the room. Not sure if they wanted to speak on this and add any further comments on my introduction to the
Okay.
item.
And then, so we have them, and I see Special Districts Administrator Robin here as well, so maybe you can weigh in on that. But if you want to come up and state anything, either all three of you, or however you want to go in order. Yes. Robin, would you like to come up to? Go ahead.
Good afternoon, Chair Crandall, board members, Alan Flores, City Manager, Clear Lake. I don't have much to say, just appreciate Supervisor Sabatier, Supervisor Owen bringing this forward, and hope that the rest of the board supports us getting together and talking about this more. Thank you.
All right. Russ, no?
No, I'm just here to support my city manager.
All right. Right, Robin?
I'm primarily here to answer any questions you may have in the ongoing operations of our systems.
All right. Is there any public input, or should we just go first? I think we'll go first, then I'll open it up for public input. Did I? Yes. Sir, come on up. Sorry. I didn't. I just asked them to come up because they're from the city. Yeah.
I appreciate it. I'm thankful for being up here and talking to you. My name is Douglas Clark. I live here in the county. I'm a retired lineman for Pacific Gas and Electric. Pillsbury is very important.
Oh, sir, this is about Lac-Osan or Lake-Osan. Yeah, that item's going to be next.
Okay,
So
looking
we'll talk
forward
about
to it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Yeah, the next item will be what he's talking about. So, any other public input? Anybody would like to come up, or anybody on Zoom? Oh,
We'll get on it.
in the meantime, so I'll close it. If someone comes on Zoom in the meantime, we'll open it back up for that purpose.
And excuse me, Chair, if somebody can make me a panelist, please.
All right. With that, back to the board. It looks like Vice Chair, you had something.
Well, I don't really have any questions today because the discussions haven't started, but I'll just indicate I'm in favor of approving this request to open discussions with the City of Clear Lake regarding this.
All right, Supervisor Pyska?
I don't see how this benefits the county.
So my response to that is we are in partnership, and there have been some historical problems. Again, things are looking better today, but again, I don't want to base a future on an individual. I want to base a future on a structure that works. Our partners have reached out and made a request to review something. That doesn't mean that we're planning to do any specific thing at this moment in time. This is saying we are in agreement to come to the table and see how can we do things better together. So I think that is how partnerships work, and I think that eventually that does lead to better outcomes for the county as well.
And I will say that I believe that we do need to look into this. We've had some major spills in that area in the Clear Lake, and actually one of the spills is in my district, in District 1, and this is something that we do need to get resolved, and we need to see what's available to be able to make that happen so that we do function better.
Robin, I had a question. Is this opportunity, is this specific to Clear Lake, or is there other opportunities for other municipalities, agencies, or governments, or anything of the like to be a part of something like this, if need be, when it comes to what we discussed?
Well, I believe the request is from the City of Clear Lake, but, you know, we do share some facilities with the City of Lakeport, and then we serve various areas around the county that are tribal related, so this could open up for others to come as well, I would guess.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's my concern is that Lake Osan services most of the county. We have 2 supervisors that already sit on this board as Lake Osan. And I'm not in favor of this. I think it opens up for unfair representation from a certain area where we have the rest of our ratepayers and constituents affected by all this infrastructure. And we have a good relationship with the city. We work together on a lot of things, but I don't see adding seats to the city as an option that is going to benefit the rest of the county and my constituents, which are all unincorporated.
Supervisor Sabatier?
And my suggestion would be that the very first conversation be what's the definition of district? Because we have a special district, we have Lake Osan, but also have its own southeast district and northwest district. And I think that's where the conversation would begin in that dialogue is what are we looking at and what are we talking about? Because I'll be just blunt, I'm not in favor in the city of Clear Lake having any jurisdiction over the lighting district of Kelseyville Oaks or Kelseyville or anything like that. I don't believe that that is their request or their want either. So I think that the dialogue will have to go through some of those ideas to figure out how to be able to dissect and then have a specific conversation because I am not looking forward to doing any kind of enhancement where a voice that does not need to be there or does not belong suddenly is there. So at least that's my personal opinion of where the dialogue should go. But I think that without that dialogue, we'll never figure out if there's a better opportunity out there. I know that, for example, CS2 is a part of the special districts, and they have their own meetings. Maybe one of the opportunities is to create a Clear Lake meeting so that special districts can be there and provide budget information and other stuff. Maybe it's as simple as that. But without the dialogue and the opening for that opportunity, we remain where we are. There used to be I don't know if it was called the Special Districts Advisory or there was some kind of sewer one, but it's been defunct for a lot of time. I think it only exists within the paperwork of the city of Clear Lake. I don't even know that we have it on ours. But I think there's just opportunities if we open up the dialogue. And I am open for options, and I'm not looking for bad options.
And speaking about this, when it says, well, are we talking about both item A and B? Lloyd?
Yes, so the item A can be approved via motion as far as initiating discussions with the city of Clear Lake. Item B pertains to the delegation composition, and one option for your board to formalize this is through the creation of an ad hoc committee, which seems to compose of the same type of membership that this proposed delegation would consist of. But that is certainly an option for your board. And that can be done through motion. Otherwise, one other option would be to just direct staff under this more informal delegation to initiate the discussions under sub A. So your board may consider either option.
And Robin, to form, because I know you mentioned a CSA, and we have quite a bit of those. Commonly, don't they apply for that, or how does that usually? Does it start with a process like we're discussing right now, or is there another process?
So the board that Mr. Sabatier is talking about is the Spring Valley Advisory Committee. And so they meet and themselves, and then they bring stuff to the district, and we meet with the district, and we'll be reviewing their budgets, and we review projects, and we talk about issues they have, and kind of keep them informed. And they're kind of a liaison between us and the board. So that's something that I believe was disbanded before that. We used to have some kind of sewer representation or sewer advisory board commission kind of thing that was made up of outside parties that provided advice to the board. But when I look on the website, it's no longer there. So I don't know what happened to it. I don't know if it was formally or if it just went away. But
For Clear Lake?
and Clear Lake had a representative on it.
And so would it be possible to resurrect that to serve the purpose of what we're talking about, or?
And that today, I was very vague in the item itself, just because I don't know what those options look like, but I think that would be one of the potential options that we can review and look into. What's the possible way to, again, enhance the partnership between the county, between Lake Coast Sand Special Districts and the city of Clear Lake.
Right, because I'm looking at that as a way to get away from what it looks like adding a seat or something like that, or is that just the formation?
And that is one of the government code. I don't have it right in front of me. I'm not going to open it up, but one of the government codes that the city of Clear Lake provided in their resolution that was one of the opportunities to do so, and wanted to open dialogue to look at those options.
Okay. Yeah, so that's, and then when it comes to staff time, when it comes to recommending this, is it staff admin or staff special districts that we're talking about?
Well, obviously, I think Director Bore has to be involved in the conversation if we move forward with that today. I would like to ask that somebody from admin be involved, just because they're really heavily involved in the budgeting of things, just to better understand what the impacts would be of the potential options that we look at. And obviously, in the very long run, or maybe even in the short run, we would want to initiate a discussion with county council to review the legalities of what's being requested or what options we're looking at.
All right, and is this something, oh, go ahead, Lloyd.
Yes, and just for added clarification, in light of the course of these discussions with your board, that this particular item, your board's discussion of it and any approvals thereof would be done as with your board sitting in as the board of directors of Lake Sand. Just for clarification.
I apologize for that omission.
Okay. Did you have something?
If everybody else is.
Okay. Would this be amenable if you had been I mean, if the direction was to go the route with putting you on this potential delegation or whatever it is to have the capacity to do something like this, or is there a bandwidth situation that you may be limited with?
Well, there's always a bandwidth issue, but if this is the priority of the board, then we'll carve out time to have these discussions. Setting up an advisory committee, that would come with additional staff time later as well. So we would need to weigh all the options. We already spend a significant amount of time on Clear Lake issues, and so.
Supervisor Pyska?
We're in the middle of pipeline negotiations right now. I'm very concerned about staff time for this. This has taken a year of our time, and we still have a long way to go. So I am not in favor of diverting staff's time on this other project as the other reason. I mean, I really, if there's an advisory committee that wants to be resurrected, we can have that conversation. That's already been established at one point in time. But I'm not in favor of going down this road, and we have to stay focused on our pipeline negotiation. That has to happen this year. We're really under a tight deadline, as Supervisor Owen knows.
Yeah, that contract actually expires, and we need to.
Yes, it does.
Go ahead.
I don't know what that timeline looks like, but initiating it doesn't mean we start tomorrow. So I think that we can be flexible in the timelines, but I think that moving forward today would be the way that I'm hoping that we end up going.
I'm going to second that. I believe we need to move forward as well. I think we can walk and chew bubblegum. So we need to multitask and go ahead and, I just don't want to see any more overflows with raw sewage going into the lake, and we need to address these issues too.
Is there,
Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so since I've been here, we have not had any significant overflows. We talked about these on our governance board. When we brought that to the board, there's been a few minor spills in the Clear Lake area in September, but during the major storms, we did not spill anything, and that is due 100% to the special district staff and their ingenuity. They have redirected some of the flows to help alleviate some of those low-lying areas. They've done a lot of line cleaning, and they've been very, very proactive despite any projects or issues that we have had working through with the Clear Lake projects and not being able to access our infrastructure and that kind of stuff. So my staff has done a really, really good job at keeping everything in the system. And the small spills that have happened, it's usually like a lateral or somebody's lateral was clogged, not like the overall system had an issue. And they were very small burp outs and cleaned up.
all right. Any other comments? All right. I know for me, there's usually, I think there was mention that you have this deadline for a couple other things. I understand at times there is situations we do need to work simultaneously, but I don't think I'll be able to support this one today. So, but if there's any action to be taken, we're ready.
I'm ready to make a motion. Would this be in do I need to do this in two parts?
Yes.
So I make a motion to approve initiating discussions with the City of Clear Lake regarding potential changes to governance model for Lake Osan.
And I'll second that motion.
So I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Nay. Motion passes 3-2. And then there's B.
For item B, I will give this a shot as approving the delegation composition to be District 1 and District 2 supervisors, Director Boré, and a member of the CAO's office.
I would,
CAO. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
well, I am concerned about the impact on the rest of the county. I would suggest a different supervisor just floating this as an opportunity so that we're not looking at impacting the rest of the county with this request. So I'm just offering it up if you wanted to maybe sit on this to balance out the needs of the rest of the county and another city.
I'm open to that. Can we reopen discussion on that?
Yeah, because we only have a motion, so we'll keep the discussion going if there's more comments or questions.
I'm just gonna kind of repeat what I said. I don't think the city of Clear Lake should have say on what to do in Kelseyville, and I would prefer a request to keep the supervisors within their jurisdiction to cover this kind of topic.
And so, yeah.
No further?
No further.
So I continue with my motion for item B to approve the delegation makeup of the District 2, District 1 supervisors with Director Bray and a member of CAO office.
CEO?
Thank you, Chair. As you know, admin is greatly involved in not only the geysers discussions, but also budget until June 30th, and also Potter Valley. We're about at max, just to be perfectly honest, because there's the three of us that would be the primary people involved in it. So I respectfully ask that if we are going to go forward, that we begin those discussions after July 1st.
I'm actually okay with that.
I'm okay with that as well.
If that is the majority direction, that is the majority direction, and so yes.
Right, I believe I've made a motion.
Lloyd?
With, and the motion is effective if, just to confirm with the incorporation of CEO Parker's proposal for the initiation of this, of the discussions with this delegation composition.
So moved.
Have a second?
So I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Nay. Motion carries 3-2. All right, thank you for that, Robin. And we'll get back to our next item on the agenda, which is 6.6. No, sorry, 6.7. R130. A, consideration of comments to Pacific Gas and Electric Company in response to their draft application for surrender of license and application for non-project use of project lands. B, consideration of a letter to California Governor Newsom highlighting considerations regarding Scott Dam decommissioning in consideration of Executive Order N16-25, and C, consideration of a letter to federal agencies regarding Scott Dam decommissioning in relation to recent executive orders from President Donald Trump. We have Patrick Sullivan and Matthew Rothstein here, and this is also something that we work on as like a committee. It's myself, Supervisor Sabatier, Matthew and Patrick, Lloyd, and if you all have been following for the past, I don't know how long, as it's been the Russian River Water Forum, EEL Russian River Commission, all of that stuff, regarding to the Scott Dam FERC situation when it comes to surrendering and decommissioning. And we have, if you've noticed, we've been talking about this within the last couple of years, but a lot of times it's on closed session. At this point, it looks like we're going to go ahead and start talking about it in an open because of the most recent activities and discussions when it comes to, I think it's called NERF, and then some agreements. And we're getting close to the commenting period when it comes to FERC and many others moving parts. There's a lot of media that's out there too that's talking about things and saying things when it comes to that. So we feel the need to be able to speak from our mind and speak from our stance and speak from a level of having, equal discussions, if you will, because a lot of times it feels as if there isn't, and there is a drowning of the stance that decommissioning is, the most ideal way. There's really, in our opinion, we've always felt like there's never been any proper discussion about having, talks about how if we weren't to decommission, but of course, this all relates back to PG&E because they're the group that is looking to surrender the license. And I will go ahead and Supervisor Sabatier, if you want to add some things.
So I just want to kind of add a little bit to the timeline. It was Tuesday the 11th, I believe, that an MOU was approved by Sonoma Water. Humboldt County, who's not necessarily a part of it, also approved a similar MOU. Mendocino Inland Water, and I don't have the full list of all of those here, but a group of 6 joined a JPA, the Eel Russian Project Authority, submitted have been working with PG&E to submit their proposal to make it a part of the FERC process in order to keep the diversions going to a certain point. And good for them. That they're doing what they should be doing for them. But there's, I believe, some real big misconceptions about what's happening here in Lake County. A lot of people feel that we are involved in discussions to make sure Lake County doesn't necessarily just end up on the wrong end of the stick. Those discussions, they may have occurred, but they're very superficial, and they lead to negative responses as to what we're looking to obtain. And I have here a quote from the California Salmon Strategy that says, "The group is working to refine the proposal and address the interests of Lake County." And that seems to be the perception throughout many departments and possibly many counties throughout Northern California. And it's frustrating because that couldn't be further from the truth. We have been denied at the table multiple times to be involved in our conversations. This was happening in 2021, 2022, with the original notice of intent from the original group that was under Huffman.
Otter Valley Two-Basin Solution.
The Two-Basin Solution. Then the Russian River Forum came together through a grant opportunity that Huffman was able to provide for his counties. We were invited to be there, and every time we asked to present, we would be denied the ability to present. Finally, we were given the opportunity to present, and that was the last meeting they ever had. They really did not want to hear from us again. At least that's the perception that I'm receiving from that type of action. We are in the midst of one of the biggest human climate change experiences, and it seems like this project wants to ignore climate change, or at least ignore the fact that we have to look at a global perspective to climate change and not try to provide for one and not another. I feel that we look at water availability and fish passage to their spawning grounds as a binary choice. It does not have to be a binary choice. So here's a perfect example of this. Now, whether or not you are completely against fish passage, that's one thing. But fish passage, when we were looking at it from the Two-Basin Solution, granted those dollars were from back then, so it could be a lot more, was around $80 million to provide fish passage. And we're looking at an enormous cost of decommissioning the dam. I believe it can go up to $500 million, and our belief is that's too low if that's going to restore the actual grounds below Lake Pillsbury. And the restoration is kind of a very nebulous thing. It doesn't exist on paper yet. We're told that those things will come. We're very cautious about how to move forward with that. But what most people aren't saying, and we've had 2 conversations where this was brought up. One was when we were meeting with Water Resources, who happened to have a consultant with us who is working with Sonoma Water. And even Water Resources at the state level was surprised when we said, well, you know that they planned on building a new dam. And the question was, is there any validity to this? Well, it's one of the options we're looking at. And to me, that's the only option if Sonoma County and Mendocino County want to have water during the end of summer season, or especially during the end of drought. because you're not going to get any more water if there's no more lake. And so the cost of decommissioning is in the 500 million range. What's the cost of building? So our plan, not ours, the state's plan and PG&E's plan is to destroy a community in Lake Pillsbury, destroy a water storage, and destroy another community somewhere in Mendocino County or Sonoma County, because you're going to have to flood somewhere in order to create a new basin and a new dam. And so the conversation is very myopic rather than looking at the whole of everything. And my two biggest concerns, we have many other concerns, is fire mitigation. We know that lake has been utilized for fire mitigation, and while we can't say because the lake was there at the time, potentially protected further movement into other communities. If that fire is moving south, that water would be utilized to help protect the fire from moving towards Upper Lake. If that fire is moving west, we are protecting it from moving towards the Ukiah and Willits area. And the water availability. I just don't even understand how you're going to have water during major droughts, which is where, again, the conversation of global warming just disappears for this one specific project that's happening. We know what 2018 to 2021 was like. We know that there was no incoming water into Lake Pillsbury. What do you think happens if there's no incoming water into a lake? Do you expect water to magically appear coming out the other side? So there is a lot of interconnectivity that is not being seen, and we believe that we are having a very myopic view of what this overall impact will be. All I can tell you is PG&E is trying to get rid of the liability, which I understand, but their impact to communities will be great. And so we formulated some letters. One of them is to Governor Newsom, who put out an executive order to help replenish and our storage of water throughout the state of California, and we are letting them know that it's confusing because you're in support of getting rid of water storage, but yet asking to store more. And we're also asking for a place at the table so we can have a conversation with them, because it seems that his administration believes that we're having great discussions leading to positive outcomes for Lake County. And then we drafted a letter to President Trump and his administration, his Secretary of Defense, Energy, the list goes on, letting him know that FERC is in charge of making the final decision, and FERC would be working against the executive orders that have currently come out from President Trump, in the sense that there is the potential for energy there, and there is the potential for water storage there, and things are working against that as we speak. Overall, PG&E just submitted on January 31st their final draft for public comment. I believe March 3rd is the last date to submit public comment for that draft. And so we also have a public comment response to PG&E's final draft that we anticipate will be submitted to FERC, which is, I apologize to everybody, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. And at the federal government, that will be submitted to them by PG&E for review, I believe either in June or July of 2025. And so I'll leave it at there because our public comments are public. They're attached to our item, and I'd like to pass it on to both Matthew Rothstein and Patrick Sullivan.
Just real quick before that, I forgot a couple things, so thank you for letting me interrupt real quick. One of the things about the process, like you said, in discussions with different agencies and different groups, there's always been the push, especially since we've got a lot of support from Congressman Thompson, and even Cecilia Agaro-Curry put us on to a good meeting with Department of Water Resources for the state. In doing so, they've always asked the same question: have you had a lot of meaningful discussions with all these agencies? And one of the things is we do meet and talk with them, but at the same time, it's always with the preface that we need to come into the situation either agreeing with decommissioning, or we don't really have meaningful discussions. We're just there. And so for me, attending a lot of these, and I'm pretty sure for everyone else and our staff and for Lake County, every time we discuss something or we're there, there's always the assumption, and then there's always in a letter or even in the media stating, well, Lake County was there. You know, I seen an article today that said we all played Kumbaya. We weren't a part of that session. You know, we weren't even there. So there's always this indication and, this impression that we're a part of these discussions, and we're not. And if we aren't there, then there's the statement that, well, they don't care enough to be there. So it's a double-edged sword. I won't say the other statement I'd say. Every time that we've had a meeting where we discuss something, or even if we're in a situation at another forum, whether it be Two Basins Solution or something else of the like, there is always a one-up. It's always just Lake County. We've been able to get Lake Pillsbury Alliance to a couple of meetings and whatnot, but every time that we're in a meeting, there's at least 20 to 30 different agencies and people there giving their insight. As soon as we say something, there's at least 20 other ones kind of piling on top of us, stacking the chips. And so there's never ever, we acknowledge what you're saying and let's move forward. It's always, well, this is the argument to the fire situation. This is the argument to the fish, which is something we brought up before when it comes to the fish, is that the dam is actually helping the fish survive, because that's one of the main problems that everyone's using as a situation with the salmon. And in fact, last year, one of the agencies wrote a letter to FERC asking them to convince PG&E to raise the gates because of the seismic issue. They let it down, as you all know. They asked them to raise it for the very thing that we've been saying for the past 4 years. No one would answer it. When finally someone got to the point to answer it, which was Congressman Huffman, he had said, well, Eddie, that may be the case, but who's going to take it over? And I'm like, okay, fine. Why didn't you say that a long time ago, and let's have that discussion back then? So just giving you an example of the frustration we had. For me, it's not having that respectful dialogue where it's at. It's always these undertones and these other discussions, and then when something happens, it's unavoidable circumstances or something like that. But we have Patrick and Matthew, and I can keep going on for days about this, so I'll let you guys go ahead.
Can I add something real quick? I apologize. I do want to thank Matthew, Lloyd, and Patrick have been immense partners in our conversations. Their knowledge of this project, their research on this project has been absolutely amazing. They're going to introduce the SLR team. Their work with the SLR staff has been absolutely critical to better understand what we're dealing with. I also want to highlight, and I know you mentioned them, I'm thankful for that. Lake Pillsbury has been an amazing partner throughout this entire journey. I'm thankful for their advocacy and for their knowledge of the area and being able to provide some of that knowledge back to us. I just wanted to highlight that before we passed it on. I'm really thankful for you guys. Thank you.
Matthew.
Thank you, Supervisors. Matthew Rothstein, Chief Deputy County Administrative Officer. As your board is aware, the county contracted with SLR International Corporation to analyze the effects of the proposed Scott Dam decommissioning. And SLR conducted a thorough review of PG&E's draft surrender application and provided detailed comments for submittal with your board's own letter. Those comments recognize the significance of water supply, recreation, wildfire suppression, and other benefits of Lake Pillsbury and the Potter Valley project. Additionally, technical concerns are raised, and I'm going to share just a few examples. Slope stability at each stage of proposed dam removal and risk of landslides in the area of Scott Dam should be better understood before the project proceeds. Further, SLR affirms Lake Pillsbury has been an important fire suppression asset that has helped to keep small wildfires small, and indicates PG&E should provide resources and create a plan to improve firefighting response times. SLR also appropriately recommends PG&E consult with the County of Lake to obtain correct tax information and incorporate that information into their analysis. SLR likewise remarks that PG&E states the community way of life for residents surrounding Lake Pillsbury will likely be adversely affected during and post-construction, and PG&E should therefore identify proper compensation for those to be affected. Darme, Maria, Mo, and Wendy of the SLR team are present in Zoom. If your board has questions on their comments or would like further overview. We really appreciate their partnership.
Patrick, did you want to say anything before we get started, or?
No, I would just, well, I'll make a brief comment. I just wanted to highlight that even in the new plan from PG&E, just as has been stated in our comments, there is not a real plan to restore Lake County. And I would just echo some of the sentiments that we heard earlier here from the supervisors, that throughout the process, it's often indicated that Lake County has been accommodated or our concerns have been addressed. But even with these more expansive PG&E comments, it's clearly not the case. There does not appear to be the restoration plan for Lake County that's being contemplated for the rest of the river, should the dam come out. And I think that's just really important to highlight.
Thank you. And so, did you want the SLR team to speak, Matthew?
If your board has any questions of them or would like further overview, they're available.
All right. Any questions? Go ahead, Supervisor.
I do have a question. It's a rhetorical question. I know the answer. How many times in the PG&E report does it say unavoidable consequences?
Plus over 100 times, I believe. It has a, yeah. This is Darby Like I'm the project manager for SLR, and thank you very much, supervisors and Matthew and Patrick and the team. We are glad we have time to go through technical understanding or technical review of what PG&E has done over a couple of rounds of presentation. So really, this time, this version of the current application, they actually created a section called unavoidable impacts and not really providing a real justification of what those comments are. There are probably 20 plus or so, unavoidable consumptions, but really there's no basis for them. And as experts in the water resources, flood management, reservoir management areas, we have seen very few unavoidable consumptions because the owner and the person in charge usually take more time to evaluate what the unavoidable circumstances are before they make a statement like that. Luckily, we do have the California process, the California Environmental Quality Act process, and also the NEPA process, the federal process, National Environmental Process. So hopefully that will open up. PG&E does acknowledge they need to follow through that when they go through the next steps of the work. So that gives a reasoning not only for the county with our help as well as others to raise why it is unavoidable. It shouldn't be unavoidable. It should be at least addressed to the minimum level of unavoidable, if at all necessary. So I think that a big red flag they raise in the.
Thank you for that. Did they fall off or something? Okay. But I'll just add something. I appreciate that synopsis or that statement because that's one of the things we want to address those. We want those addressed before we move forward. But there's this push to make sure this happens faster, and we would also like for our concerns to be addressed or in taken into consideration prior to moving so quickly. And so that's where it gets frustrating for us. Is not having that dialogue, not being able to come together and actually have some real action or some potential action. It's just always, well, we'll see when we get to this point or whatever the case may be.
And if you don't mind, we've seen a lot of projects come in front of us. What we see are mitigations. Yes, there is going to be an impact. Here is the problem. Let's find out a mitigation. For the idea that so many unavoidable impacts are okay makes me wonder, have we even looked at ways to mitigate this? And I'll throw one, because PG&E is going to come up here and speak to us. I'll throw one to them. They have told us they will elaborate on their management plans after it's been approved by FERC. That makes us very nervous to know that you have to go through an approval process prior to knowing the details of what's actually going to get accomplished if the lake disappears. And without those levels of details, we will continue to advocate for what we feel is necessary for Lake County.
Go ahead, Supervisor Owen?
I'm also really concerned about the impacts of the sludge and the contaminations and the death of the fish and the environmental issues that are going to come along with that. And as I understand it, there was a lot of mining in that area where the lake now sits, quicksilver mining, and so I believe that the sludge, from what I've read, is kind of keeps that at bay right now. It's kind of covered up and holding it, and as that is let loose and that moves, we know what has happened up north. Was it McKinleyville where they
Klamath?
Plymouth, where they took out the dams?
Klamath.
And there was a lot of repercussions to the wildlife. So I do have real concerns there, and I think we all should.
You have anything to add?
I'm going to hold myself.
Any? Okay. Anything else to finish with? All right, so we'll open it up to the public input, and if you have a comment, please come to the microphone, and I'm sure we have some folks on Zoom as well. So, yeah, if you want to come up and make a statement or comment about this item, please come up.
Good afternoon. My name is Jason Tarmino. I'm the government affairs person for Pacific Gas and Electric Company. I'm what's known as your single point of contact, which is the person that you can call when you have questions or concerns, and I'm the conduit to the rest of the organization. And as you all know, I have many answers, but on certain things, I bring in experts. I wanted to be here today just to let the community know and to let you all know that we care. I'm always available to you, and we've had lots of meetings about this, and I'll continue to do that and advocate for you to have the information that you need. Thank you very much.
Mahim, Santamake Kanema, Nicole Anna, Round Valley Kayana.
Kentama.
My name is Nicole Whipple. I'm a member of the Round Valley Indian tribes, and I'm also a descendant of the Yuki and Pomo tribes. I am also a resident of Lake County, and I've been a part of all of these. In the past 3 years, I've been a part of the Eel River Coalition and groups that you've been discussing. And just to share a little bit of background, as I am a Round Valley tribal member, I shared that I am a Yuki descendant, and I am the great-great-granddaughter of Eben Tillotson and Ida Graves, who were, Ida Graves was Habemetal Pomo. So I do have ties here. My youngest daughter is a great-great-granddaughter of Chief Augustine, and she is part of the Scotts Valley. So I also have ties to our traditional houses here. One of the things that I wanted to share with you is that some of the discussions that aren't brought up about this project is that Lake Pillsbury sits on top of Yuki territories. Lake County history of, the Pomo history shows that after the creation of the dam, which clearly shows the headwaters and the dam are Yuki territories, then there are Pomo territories around. And so I would like you to take that into consideration when you think about, as we talk about water rights and the people who are being harmed in this. Those are my tribal people. And it's not only the reason why in the conversations that I was present in, where maybe you may have felt dismissed or pushed aside, is because as we came together to discuss the betterment of the entire riverway, and talking about fish, these are androgynous fish that need to travel to and from, the same way that our tribal people, traveled to and from the headwaters to the ocean in time for food sustenance and sovereignty. The creation of this dam was intentional because the fishery was so strong that it was economic value to the colonizers to take not only the water source, but the fishery, and to forcibly move our tribal people off of our ancestral Aboriginal territories into reservations, small ceded reservations. Today, our people believe that these reservation areas are, it's gold to them. These small little spots. I come from the largest land-based tribe in between Mendocino Lake and Sonoma, and we have barely had the time or the capacity to be able to manage those lands or take care of those lands. Our water right has always been there, and we are just now at a time to embrace and have the funding to be able to do so. So when you take in consideration your
So if you're wrapping up, your
Okay.
3 minutes is.
as you take in consideration writing to FERC, I'd just like to inform you that just recently FERC did approve the rights of a tribe in Nevada, I believe. Arizona, where they stood heavily on this trust responsibilities given to those tribal people in their ancestral territories. And this was the same diversion system. So, just be aware that there is already legal precedents, new precedents, as well as tribal water rights that are in jeopardy here. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And I know that with the tribes locally, being Robinson and Upper Lake, where I know that when it comes to territory for cultural artifacts after Mendocino Complex fire, I know a lot of the work that was done up there to find artifacts after the fire and be monitors. That was the area when considering that concept, not historical lands, which is also historical lands that are based on maps right now are linguistic maps, which gives an indication and implication where folks may have been. But at the same time, it's still one of those things that historically there's more pieces to the puzzle, which is more of the reason why we have these rules for cultural artifacts, AB 52 and all these other laws in place for the tribes to find how their history, where they're mapping, everything in place, right? And so I'm not speaking for those tribes. I know that neither have been really in position with a stance in my district, so I'm speaking to them. I also have ties to other tribes in Mendocino County, and I don't speak for them. I can't speak for them. They have a leadership, and that's one of the things I think is frustrated as well, because when these things are written or when they're stated that the tribes, and most of the time they're referring to the Round Valley Indian tribes, which is the biggest tribe, which has a really big land base and has a lot of different history because of the fact that they were all, after Indian reorganization, all put on that reservation, which was unfortunate. And so there is a lot of historical, information there. Right, well, of course, that's in the linguistic maps as well. However, there were Pomo villages there as well. So, I mean, we can all talk about historical mapping and whatnot. The reality is after that dam came up, there were still tribes that were affected in another way. I know I've heard stories from Mendocino and Sonoma families and elders that, had salmon and talked about that. So, there's different moving parts, and I think that's the difficult thing, because when the agencies come forward, they go to specific folks and give them specific information that sensationalizes them towards one thing. And, here's the thing. I want there to be more robust discussion. I want there to be a follow-up, not let's just move this forward and we'll figure out afterwards, because we know as a tribe, as the tribes, they've usually not been given the best scenario, right? It's been the same thing. Well, here, this is something that I think Lake County feels similar to when it comes to that. So, this thing being pushed along, not having people along with us to be able to speak the same thing has been very difficult. And I do know of other tribes, but I'm not going to speak for them, but they've had an opposition to this situation as well in different counties. So, but I'll leave it at that, because I know that, again, I can't speak for them. Is there anyone else that has public input?
Hello, good afternoon, Board of Supervisors. My name is Amanda Martin, and I stand here before you as the Executive Director of the Lake County Chamber of Commerce. So I'm representing the voices of businesses and residents who care deeply about the future of our community. We wish to emphasize the critical importance of including Lake County in the decision-making process. It is vital that as the dam and the lake are within our county's borders, the people and businesses of Lake County have a voice in this discussion. Any decision made about the future of Scotts Dam will have significant implications to our community, and it is only fair and just that we are given an opportunity to participate in a process that will shape our environment and economy for generations to come. We believe that decisions about the lake must include those who live here, work here, and rely on the lake for their livelihoods. The exclusion of Lake County from these discussions has been both unfair and short-sighted, as it overlooks the direct impact such decisions will have on our local economy, tourism, and quality of life. So we just want to commend the Lake County Board of Supervisors for your ongoing efforts to ensure that Lake County has a seat at the table. It is through your leadership that we hope to ensure our community's voice is heard and respected in the decisions that directly affect us. So that's all, and thank you for your efforts. Appreciate it.
Sir?
Good afternoon. My name is Ray Tote. My wife and I are full-time residents of Lake Pillsbury. I'm also the secretary of Lake Pillsbury Fire Protection District. So I'm not going to elaborate much on what's already been said, but first of all, I would like to thank you folks for the effort and the energy that you're putting towards this. First thing, you had mentioned fire suppression. We were up there for both the ranch fire and the complex fire, so I was able to firsthand see in a fire mitigation situation how valuable that lake is. Second of all, water retention. Going back to the history, the reservoir was first built because they were realizing that there was not sufficient flow downstream at Van Arnsdale to complete a year-round power production facility. I also live on Salmon Creek, which is the third largest tributary feeding the lake, and I can tell you that every summer it dries up. It is not a spawning ground. It's not Rice Fork and it's not the main fork of the Eel River, but it is the third largest tributary feeding the river. With that said, I do believe that it has been an active part. It has evolved to the current ecosystem, and to remove that dam would be a catastrophic disaster, a man-made disaster. We hike up and down the creeks and the rivers, and I feel that there is no way that the eagle could survive in the flows that are even on a good summer. I don't believe that the elk and all the other waterfowl, we see geese and you name it, and all of that would be gone, and it would be a man-made environmental disaster, in my opinion. Last of all, one thing that I haven't heard touched on today is the recreational value of the lake. PG&E, from what I have heard, is threatening to close all the recreation facilities, including the campgrounds. We were up there when the campgrounds were closed during COVID. People are still going to go there. And during COVID, the campgrounds were closed, and that basin turned into a dump heap. And it's not everybody, it's the 1 or 2% that just don't care that thrashed that basin. So recreationally, that lake is very valuable. So with that, once again, I would like to thank you folks for all the effort that you've put into this project. Thank you.
I apologize. I missed a major point that I also wanted to make in case anybody wants to speak to this. Unfortunately, we were kind of a little late to the game, but in 2022, there was a deal struck between PG&E and the Mendocino Land Trust, and this was brought to you by the CPUC that forced them through, I don't know if it was a lawsuit or if it was just a settlement of sorts, where there is a conservation easement on the entirety of the Potter Valley project that will not allow for any type of development If I remember, and I'm paraphrasing, what's allowed is you can maintain or renew whatever is already there. So it will be great when we get to renew the docks that lead to nothing because there's no more water there. And we're being told, and I'm reading in some of the media that's discussing this topic, that we need to think about the future of recreation. That restriction of that easement is so restrictive that there is no such thing as Lake Pillsbury 2.0.
Yeah.
We are being completely, I have never seen the ability of other agencies able to cancel our economic development without us being able to provide public comment. That process, in my opinion, is absurd that we're not even allowed to provide public comment at that point in time.
And I'm sorry.
We missed it.
With that being said, another thing that's been very disturbing to me, and you mentioned it earlier, was that you were not invited to the table in the initial talks. And a couple of the things that to me are disturbing about that is they were brought up by special interest groups and politicians that are not even within the district of Lake Pillsbury. And so not only were these talks.
You've had your 3 minutes, but I'll let you wrap it up real quick. You want to wrap it up real
That's
quick?
fine. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
I apologize for not bringing that up earlier.
It's all right. There's other things that I'm remembering now too, so it's okay.
Thank you, Board of Supervisors, for addressing this topic, which has been close to my heart from either late summer 2017 or 2018, which is when I became aware of this project. So I sincerely appreciate your efforts. My name is Melissa Fulton. I've been a resident of Lake County since January of 1989. I was up there on a camping weekend and heard from the then volunteer fire chief for Lake Pillsbury about PG&E's proposal. And I contacted, at that time I was employed as the CEO of the Lake County Chamber of Commerce. I retired 3.5 years ago, so that's not my position here today at all. I contacted Senator Mike Thompson about this. We had a meeting, a telemeeting, if you will, with he and 2 of his representatives. I also brought it to the Board of Supervisors and obviously to the Board of Directors of the Lake County Chamber at the time. The chair of our Governmental Affairs Committee at the time went up to Lake Pillsbury in September and took videos of the influx, and I should say non-influx of water into the lake at that time. And so that doesn't happen just in drought years. It happens in years of rain as well. I'm somewhat disturbed by the fact, and please someone correct me if I'm wrong in this, but my understanding is that the reason that PG&E is wanting to get out of their license is because it's costing them money. And yet I read, even within the last 2 months, about the tremendous billions of dollars that PG&E is experiencing in profit to them and their shareholders, their investors. So this is extremely disturbing to me, along with the fact that this whole project was begun by U.S. Representative Congressman Jared Huffman, who has absolutely no tie in any part of his district to the County of Lake. And it's already been addressed that the County of Lake has been sorely missing at the table. And and it was probably late 2018 or early 2019 that I called Congressman Huffman's office.
Let's see if you can wrap it up. Go ahead.
And requested a meeting at the table, and I was told that wasn't possible. So thank you again. I appreciate the fact that you are coming forward, and I've read your letters. I think they express very well the issues that Lake County has faced in trying to address an issue that is totally within their boundaries. Thank you.
Thank you.
And that was 2.5 billion in profits.
Is there any other public comment?
Good afternoon, Carol Cinquini, Lake Pillsbury Alliance. I want to thank you all for your hard work on this. I thought your documents were excellent. They really address a lot of the undervalued and unsaid things that we need to be evaluated to really know what is best for this project. And I think that was critically important. I also want to point out that this is a PG&E process, and so they're not under any obligation to forward any of our comments on to FERC at this time. So it's going to be really important that we continue this, stay strong, and be very prepared during the FERC process, which will open July 29th. Thank you so much for what you've done to put this together.
Any other comments?
We have some on Zoom when you're
Some on Zoom? Okay. So if you can unmute.
We have Jonathan Cronin,
All right.
if somebody can unmute. Neither do I.
So, Sam, are you able to promote Johanna to co-host, please? Thank you.
She wants to be added to promoted. Okay. Oh, well, she wanted Johanna, she asked to be promoted herself, okay. So while they're doing that, I just want to state, because some things have been brought up and it sparked back into my mind. I also wanted to say that I'm in no way I don't have any ill will towards any of the other agencies, tribes, government, water agencies. I think they've all been put in the same position we have. They need a source of water, so they're doing what they feel they need to for their constituency. Even Congressman Huffman, I understand he's trying to do what he needs to for his constituency and the tribe. I know that they are as well. I think the process is really what frustrates me the most. So that way we can do what we need to for our constituency as well. And so, I just had to say that, plus the transparency thing. I mean, it's a difficult situation, like Carol had mentioned, that there's no Brown Act or anything that covers what's going on when it comes to PG&E. Even that proved to be the situation with the NOI parties, where we weren't allowed to be part of that group, and it wasn't Round Valley, it wasn't Sonoma Water, it wasn't Mendocino Inland Water or Humboldt. It was actually a nonprofit that had the say for that. And so that might have been able to kind of let some of this animosity die down if we were a part of that when we put the $100,000 to be part of that group, and then that didn't happen. And so those are the type of things I think that are frustrating. Even when it comes to the fires, there's always statements like, well, it wouldn't really make a difference, they can go to Mendocino Lake or whatever the case may be. However, I was there during the August Complex fire, and when there was a potential for it to affect the Lake Pillsbury Ranch, and I watched over the hill to Glenn County, helicopter going back and forth. I talked with numerous forest hotshots, I call them, stating we'd be toast in Lake County if that wasn't there. There's also statements that there needs to be more work on the land. Well, that's true as well. You're talking about a lot of Mendocino National Forest areas, and now when we're looking at these cuts and whatnot, I don't know how that looks now, but I just, after some folks talked, I felt like saying that, plus we're having issues with getting people on Zoom, so I figured I'd plug some time up.
Frank Lynch is ready.
All right, Frank.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Well, first of all, I'm sorry I couldn't be there, but I have the flu, and I think you'd rather I was not there. So I just wanted to thank you for all your work that you've done, and I would echo a couple of things that have been said. One, I think Lake County has been slighted throughout this process, and I salute you for trying to stay engaged. I also echo Supervisor Sabatier's comments about trying to find the economic balance here in that dam removal and coming up with the hundreds of millions of dollars, if not more, for replacement infrastructure that has to be considered with the loss of the lake is something that needs to be examined in our outreach to the feds and to the state and looking for some other entity to be formed to take over the operation of the lake is certainly warranted. And again, I would like to thank the board and your staff for doing excellent work on the documents you prepared. So again, thank you very much.
Anyone else on Zoom?
Yeah, I'd like to make a comment if possible.
All right, John, go ahead.
So PG&E Equipment has started multiple fires in the last 10 years in Northern California. PG&E had $2.5 billion in profits last year. PG&E needs to assist with wildfire mitigation. We in Lake County, we need Lake Pillsbury for fire mitigation. There's elk, deer, bear, otters, mountain lions, and other wildlife that's all going to perish when the dam is removed. We also have paid $7.5 billion in California for new additional water storage, which would be nice if we could apply that towards refurbishing the dam.
Yes.
I use Lake Pillsbury for recreation. It's a beautiful area, and I hate to see that dam come out. Thank you for your time.
And that was John Cronin. He wasn't able to mute. They said his name before, so I just want to make sure they knew that his name was...
No further.
Yeah. Nothing further in Zoom. Okay, just real quick, because I know this is a sensitive subject. It's a very important subject. If there's anyone else that'd like to come up and say something else for another minute, I know I let a couple people go over, so I want to make sure I give that opportunity to anyone. All right.
Thank you for the extra time. I left out a few things too. I was, really worried about. I really wanted to speak on the fire situation as well. I have been working. I ended up in Lake County because I wanted to be boots on the ground as I started my, work as a water protector and policy advocate, and working on these Eel River projects. And I've got to learn a lot. I was in these presentations. I got to speak on things about like how I grew up in Redwood Valley. I'm from Round Valley, grew up my middle school, high school years in Redwood Valley. And so when the complex fire came through, I was well aware, my family being in fire, that fire crept over into my relatives and into the valley, taking lives because it intentionally crept around Potter Valley, which is irrigated, right? And so I knew that. But it took me to be working with Tara over these last months to realize, as we worked on two different spots, one in Potter Valley and one up further by the river on the other side of the river, that to see it, we've seen the actual fire effects. There was a town hall meeting where, the state CAL FIRE's chief shared that we fight fire on the ground, not with water. And so I think that's something to take in consideration as well. And also the presentation that was given earlier. As a land steward, we are looking at all the sickness in our oaks and we don't even have tule. I'm sitting here hurt, like, you guys can't even take care of this lake here. I'm over here working with our tribes to help save the hitch and the tule. And then I have to come and fight with you. It's not a fight, but, express how important it is that you let us take care of our side of our river and let it become a free-flowing river, because having another bacteria-infested cesspool is not getting us anywhere, as well as the number of Eel River tribes who are down south. If this dam were to collapse, it would flood all the way to Benbow, and that's deep. That's why the conversations are always about how we work together, versus when it felt like you guys came in, it was always like, oh, we're the headwaters and we deserve to be the entitled to be the only say. You know, that was the feeling, what it felt like when you guys came into these meetings. But to wrap up, you know, the presentation earlier, that sickness in those trees is the same sickness that's being spread every time we dump those bacteria-infested waters elsewhere. That's you know, that drainage, when rivers are not supposed to be flowing all the time, they are supposed to be dry at times because they are recharging the rest of the watershed. And so I think we need to look at the water as a whole and the entire system versus just one spot, and how long that dam has created the droughts. And then these 5 counties that are fighting for our Eel River water have been for the 5 consecutive years. I drive in and out, commute every day to Mendocino County, and everything is flooded. So why are we not considering how to work with those, you know, manage this lake here for your recreation? Because I can't even drink my water from the tap. This is our water source. But I drive back and forth and see all these areas flooded. I drive down south, everything's flooded, but everybody is so dependent on this, again, bacteria-filled cesspool, muddy slush. I mean, let's be realistic.
Thank you. Nothing's worse than having an echo chamber, so that's why I felt the need to allow you to speak. I'm not going to comment on the things you said because we can be here all day. Is there anyone else from the public who'd like to come up? I'll close the public input. I'll bring it back to the board for action or discussion or whatever.
I have no need to change any of the letters that we have presented, as well as the public comments that will be submitted to PG&E. And so I'm going to go ahead and move forward with... Oh, I apologize. I didn't see that.
Go ahead. I thought you were going for action. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to make my comments. I did watch the Humboldt County meeting from a couple of weeks ago. They were the only party of the MOU that had the conversation in public, which I thought was very interesting. Listening to their concerns of down the river, I feel for them. They want to restore their fisheries. They have industry. They want a healthy river. What I didn't hear from them was any talk about, well, they did talk about the pike minnow, but they didn't talk about the sediments. They didn't talk about the potential collapse, the instability. There's a lot of issues that I think that they're not even aware of. Again, everyone is looking out for their own interests, but it just, I can't wrap my head around the fact that this dam has to come down to build another reservoir somewhere else. In this day and age, when we're so focused on water capacity and storage and recharging groundwater, that's exactly what this project already does. So, I mean, here we are finally having this conversation in public after years and years in closed session. I'm glad that we have people in attendance. I'm glad people are watching. We can finally send these letters that we've been wanting to send for a long time. I think that's all I'm going to say right now.
Supervisor Rasmussen, Vice Chair.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, and the river flows. There was no mention,
Okay.
there was no mention in Humboldt County about the potential of the rivers just drying up each year, which we know happens. So I think there could have been a lot more collaboration between all of the parties, a better conversation, better product, and we wouldn't be here where we are today here.
Yeah, I'll be brief because everything's really been covered, but I appreciate the work of our 2 supervisors involved in this and our staff members. And, I know there's a lot of stakeholders with concerns, but I don't feel like, the Lake County concerns have been listened to. And, I have a lot of concerns about the impact on our community here. So I'm in support of sending these letters as written.
Any other comments?
Mr. Chair, I move to, I'll go one at a time rather than all of them together. Move to approve the comments as provided in our attachments to Pacific Gas and Electric Company in response to their draft application for surrender of license and application for non-project use of project lands.
I'll second that.
And for the letter,
Lloyd.
authorize the chair to sign.
And authorize the chair to sign.
All right, I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the letter to California Governor Gavin Newsom highlighting considerations regarding Scott Dam decommissioning and consideration of Executive Order number N1625.
And I'll second that.
And authorize the chair to sign.
And authorize the chair to sign.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Appreciate the assist. C, I move to approve the letter to federal agencies regarding Scott Dam decommissioning in relation to recent executive orders from President Donald Trump and authorize the chair to sign.
And I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, everyone, for this item. Thank you, Patrick, Matthew, Lake Pillsbury Alliance for coming. Anyone else who made comments, I appreciate you coming and making your comments. Lloyd, as well, thank you. And I know that we've done a lot of work in closed session on this for quite some time. We're not, one of the things that I'd like to say is we do have to, worry about our lake, but this is a situation that's in our jurisdiction. We have to pay attention to it. We have to do what we can for our constituents. And it's just, thanks again. Should we take a short break?
I could use one.
All right, we'll take a short break, 2:45. Thank you, everyone. it's not uncommon for that. We're ready? All right. So all of our timed items have been completed as we're back from the break, sorry. And so we will, which one would you recommend, CAO or?
7.2.
7.2, let's see. Consideration of Administration, Human Resources, and Public Services Department to implement an intern program in fiscal years 24-25 and 25-26. I know this is sponsored also by Vice Chair Rasmussen. So I don't know if you wanted to head it off there. And
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Let me just get to my item here. So one of my goals is working with youth and increasing youth involvement in the government and trying to get them more interested. So I wanted to start an intern program. I know the county has had interns in the past, but it's my understanding it's been some time since we've had those programs. However, in talking to staff, our existing rules and policies would allow for us to employ interns. And really, to me, it was just to reiterate, workforce development, community engagement, exposure to our youth to public service careers, and potentially even succession planning. So I've talked to the CAO and the HR director and also Public Services because I found out they had an interest in running an intern program. And of course, this is something that I would want the departments to be committed to, not just push it to them. For us to get the most out of it, both for our students and for the county and the departments, we need that commitment and interest. And I know that Human Resources and Public Services are both very interested and have meaningful work that they can provide, so it makes for a good experience on both sides. And I'm willing to, spend some of my discretionary money to hire 2 interns if the board will support having staff spend the time necessary to make this happen. And I know HR Director Samick's here if anyone has questions, but essentially that's the request.
Supervisor Pyska?
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. We do get AmeriCorps fellows as part of a different program. And there's Lars, yeah. We've had these conversations about interns with Public Services before, and we're having it in some other places, so I'm really supportive of this. Is it necessary to use your discretionary funding, or do these departments have funding that they could contribute? No?
I didn't explore that greatly. It sounded, I can say in an initial conversation with Director Ewing, I know he was already kind of looking at doing something like this, so I can't answer whether he has funding or not. Yeah. It's just, I looked at that as a appropriate use of that kind of funding, so.
Go ahead, Director Ewing.
Okay. Lars Ewing, Public Services Director. I apologize for missing the very beginning of this, but maybe timely with respect to the funding piece. It depends on the position. I have a few of them in mind, to be honest, a few divisions and a few specific positions. The one that first came to mind is in museums, a pursuit of trying to develop some interest locally in museums, at a museum technician, maybe even an assistant curator level and on up. And I can tell you that at the museums level, funding is very tight. I would gratefully appreciate the funding. There are other divisions that I'm considering. One is parks and really recreation side, which has no funding. So it's also, well, I shouldn't say it has no funding. There's nothing that is in our current budget for it, but we do have a parks and recreation budget that has a little bit more flexibility than museums, but it's certainly limited funding. So it would depend upon the position, but I just wanted to clarify that a bit. That museums certainly more so than the others would be hard to do with our existing budget.
Okay. Well, I think it's a great program to pilot. And then maybe after this year, we can look at it and see if there's maybe another way we could support it or what other departments.
And there, were you done?
No, yeah, I'm done.
And there may be other departments that have already been thinking about this. I don't know. Before I came to this circumstance, I was kind of thinking, putting it out to all the departments and seeing who was interested, but I got interest right away, and so I figured that would be a good place to start. They're both, important programs, the museum, and then, HR can expose those folks to, or those students to a lot of things that we have going on. And since they're part of the CAO's office, it's my hope that we would be able to have some time to bring them over and potentially even have them, sit with Johanna for a board meeting and kind of see what we do and learn about our jobs. So, so I think there's a lot of potential to expand this in the future.
Supervisor Owen?
I'm really excited about it. I think it's a great idea, and I think it's a great program, and I think that as Supervisor Pyska mentioned, maybe in the future, if we could find some funding to keep this going, I think it's phenomenal. Thank you.
Supervisor Sabatier? Sorry, I didn't see your pen earlier.
I had a big smile on my face when I saw this on the agenda. I've been working with Ms. Samick with Yuba Community College District to looking at how to enhance the pipeline because it seems to have slowed down quite dramatically compared to before. And the outcome of our meetings with YCCD was, how about an internship program? And so it just kind of paralleled those two conversations. And so I'd love to see if we can kind of bridge it together. And what I want to offer is, and I can't say that it's possible, but if the program was written as a proposal, to submit that proposal to Workforce Alliance of North Bay to see what kind of funding is available, because they do training. They'll pay 50% of salaries for those that are being trained. And to me, an internship is training. Again, I don't know enough to say it's possible, but I'd love to see what is out there, what is available, so that we can rely on those dollars that are already brought from the state to our local communities to see if we can carve out a spot for those types of internships. It would be limited. I think last time we had a presentation from Bruce Wilson from Workforce Alliance of North Bay. He said we had 7 people that utilized that training dollars that were available, but that's 7 people maybe that we can utilize for the county. So I just think that's an opportunity, and would love to see how we can look and match all of that together, and hoping that we can just kind of bridge those two ideas and see what's possible by using the college as well as maybe high school students, because anybody who can get interest that can help us fill in these vacancies, I think, is always a win.
And I envision this as it being open to high school and or college students, not just ones that are here in the 2 community colleges, but we also have a lot of students that graduated last year that might be attending a 4-year university like Sonoma State or Chico that they're still our residents. They're just there. So I think that was my vision in talking to our staff, that it would be open to those folks as well. And I think I like the additional idea. I think we can easily add that in and expand this whole thing down the road once we get it started.
And just wanted to add, because I know especially with Director Ewing, some departments hire extra help, and maybe we can look at extra help, maybe turning that into an internship. I don't know what that looks like or what's possible, but just looking at what's more flexible within certain allocations than our normal position allocations. So just putting it out there.
Most of our extra help would not meet the guidelines of interns, at least the way we're currently using them, but we could definitely look into that. And then the only other caveat is those students that are below 18, we have to be careful at what we allow them to do because of child labor laws. So we'll have to factor that in as well.
Whatever the limits.
I know that I've spoke before. I think Lars, you'll probably remember when I asked you about, it was about college students that were studying to become engineers or something like that. We had talked briefly about it. I know I talked with Scott DeLeon when he was the Public Works Director about it as well, considering all of the limitations we have when it comes to some of the work. And I know Scott had told me it would help because then there's some tasks that I have to do as an engineer that, you know, they can do for me, but we would have to do it at an extra help level and to look further into it. But I know that Scott ended up leaving, and it kind of got a couple other things that I was dealing with Scott kind of got, left on the burner or whatever you want to call it. So, I mean, I'm glad you brought this forward because this fits kind of what I was talking about. Because I also remember before we had a discussion, I think when you and I were first on about, I think we were talking about budget, and we brought up staffers, you know, and it was like, I shouldn't even said that because we got smacked down hard by the board at that time. We were like, well, you know, like, we'll figure out like a way to, you know, have interns or something like that. It just stopped. But yeah, that's another thing as well. But of course, my thought process is, of course, the college students. I know it's going to be delicate with the high school students, but then again, it's just like what we talked about earlier today about making sure we have people that want to stay local instead of move away. I have a lot of friends that live in other municipalities and counties and states that do the same work we could use here. So, yeah. Any other comments?
Well, I guess just the last thing I would say, you know, I appreciate there's a lot of opportunity where we might be able to get other funding, but I kind of thought my offer to use a little bit of money was a way to get this started like right now, you know, so.
I will open it up to the public real quick. If there's anyone, Lars, go ahead.
Excuse me, Lars Ewing, Public Services Director. We've been focusing, or the conversation has been focused on typically interns that are going the traditional education route. But I would suggest that as a part of this pilot, we look at other education. There's education and training. We typically use those terms, but you know, someone who may not be going to a 4-year school or even a 2-year school, there's other opportunities to get internships here. You know, very highly trained, but it doesn't come with a degree, but it comes with a license or a certification. And so, you know, to kind of simplify it, the micro type of jobs. I mean, we have you know, facilities maintenance workers and heavy equipment operators and parks maintenance staff just in public services alone, and there are other departments as well. So how that fits into this, I don't have an answer. But since what you're considering, I think, is approval of staff time to look into this, I think it would be wise to look at both the college route of internship and then the, you know, I don't know if you want to call it the blue collar class. I don't like that term, but I think it's maybe known in the you know, traditionally in that sense. And I think there's some benefit to looking into it from that perspective as well.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I wasn't looking at really trying to restrict it to any one thing or another, just making the program available. And obviously there's things we need to talk about. And that's why we need the staff time or the approval.
Right, so any other, okay, any other public comment before I come back to the board? All right, anybody on Zoom? All right, bring it back to the board. Go ahead, Supervisor Sabatier.
I guess I wanted to just ask Supervisor Pyska your thoughts on involving Workforce Alliance of North Bay and trying to see if that can be a part of the program or if they have funding available for such a program.
Yeah, we can do that.
So I'm wondering if that can be a part of the 8 hours, is to connect our HR department with Bruce Wilson, the executive director, so that they can better understand, or we can better understand how to formulate our intern program to match what dollars might be available.
Yeah, I'm good.
And, you know, I'm fine with this. And once you get past that, if we need to look at, I mean, I'll look at my budget for discretionary to see as well, because I know this is going to help. I mean, we talk
It
about
helps the whole county. It's not restricted to my district.
Right. And I know that not only whole county, but also just keeping people here so they don't have to go through these cycles of people coming in and then jumping in the hot water and then leaving.
Right.
But anyhow, so yeah. Any other comments? All right. If none, I think there's action.
There is action needed.
Lloyd, do you have something?
It could be done by motion to your board,
Okay.
if your board chooses to do so.
Just looking for me, so I'll make a motion.
Yes.
I'll make a motion to authorize staff in the administrative service, the administration, human resources, and public services departments to invest more than 8 hours of time to implement an intern program in fiscal years 24-25, extending to next fiscal year 25-26.
I second that.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
And so I apologize. If we can take a couple minutes, just 2 minutes, possible break. I know that we have a robust schedule. I just to address something real quick.
Okay.
So just give me 2 minutes.
By the way, it says unavoidable 276 times.
I'm all right. All right. Thank you for the couple minutes. I'm going to have to head out. I have a family situation, so Brad has stated he would be willing to take over for me while I head out. I apologize. Thank you for understanding.
You know what we have to do left?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see her walk out. I'm going to call the meeting back to order, and we're going to go to our 7.5 item, which is consideration of the following advisory board appointments: Animal Care and Control Advisory Board, Area-Wide Planning Council, East Region Town Hall, and Glenbrook Cemetery District. And do we have any board discussion or questions for staff or the board at this point?
So I have a public confession that I need to make. Last time that we were together 2 weeks ago on February 11th, James Burton's application was here, and I completely forgot I had a conversation with Chair Crandall, who said, please approve James Burton. That was reminded to me when I was trying to run something back and forth, and I just completely failed to memorize that direction from him. And so today, even though Chair Crandall just left, I would like to take the opportunity to fix my last mistake and make sure that we approve James Burton to Earth.
Okay, any
Are we
further?
starting with animal control?
Animal Control is the first one.
And I have no issues with District 2 application. Ryan Peterson is in charge of animal control in Clear Lake, and it's good for him and Lake County Animal Control to be a part of those meetings together to better understand each other's activities and perspectives.
So I think we need to open to the public, or unless there's further board conversations.
Charmaine Weldon, too.
So we open up to the public if there's any, should I do one item at a time, Lloyd, or can I open to the public for all of these? So at this point, I'm going to open it to the public comment for all of the applications, all of the committees that are under consideration. Do we have anybody in the chamber who wishes to speak? Thank you, Julia. You'll have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Chair, Board. I just want to say I think it's wonderful that Charmaine is being put forward as the Animal Control Services Committee member for District 3. She runs Clear Lake Animal Association. She is working diligently with all rescues around the region. She's the one that put together the pet fix from meetings that we were having. I'm very pleased to see that. So please do approve her application today. Thank you.
Thank you. Johanna, do we have anybody in Zoom? No hands in Zoom. I'm going to go ahead and close public comment and bring it back to the board. And Supervisor Sabatier has a comment.
And while I will not disagree whatsoever that Charmaine is making great efforts, I do not know, I have not had any conversation with Chair Crandall, so unless someone else has, I'm uncertain what the decision would have been made. I can speak up for Jim Burton, but can't speak up specifically for Charmaine today, other than personally amazing.
I have no information that I can offer from Chair Crandall.
Do you think we should pull that for the next one, just to?
Yeah.
So that he's appointing his own?
Okay, so we will make note that we're going to hold off on the District 3 Animal Control position until such time as Chair Crandall can be available, which should be next meeting. Okay, anything further?
Mr. Chair, I move to approve Ryan Peterson to Animal Control Advisory Board for District 2.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
I will move for your appointment of Danny Wynn, if you don't mind.
Yes, please.
Can't do it? Okay, I move that we appoint Danny Wynn to the LAPAC.
Danny's amazing. Second.
We have a motion and a second to appoint Danny Wynn to LAPAC. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The motion carries.
I move to approve James Burton to Earth.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second to appoint James Burton. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
I move that we appoint Stephen Barnes to the Glenbrook Cemetery.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to appoint Stephen Barnes to Glenbrook Cemetery. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
That's a long time.
And so that concludes? Or did we get them all?
Yeah.
Yes, okay. So go ahead and close that item. I'm going to call our 7.6 item, which is consideration of delegation to the Blue Ribbon Committee for the rehabilitation of Clear Lake. And I can go ahead and start. I'm familiar with what's going on with that item. When this board on January 7th made our appointments to the different boards and committees, it was not made clear who was the primary and who was the alternate on the Blue Ribbon Committee. I found out a couple weeks after that there was a delineation. There was two positions, one being the primary and one being an alternate. And Supervisor Owen and I did speak about that, and we're okay with moving forward as we have it explained in this, which would make me the primary delegate and Supervisor Owen as the alternate delegate. Since we're on this topic, I do want to, I think I can bring this up, that in further research, I'm also aware that the Blue Ribbon Committee happened to set all of their meetings for 2025 back in December. With the exception of the one in March, the rest of the year have all been set on days that we are in session. So if that stays that way, we will not have a board member from the Board of Supervisors at any of these meetings other than the March meeting coming up next month. So before I get to Supervisor, I have talked to the Sam Miguel, I'm not sure of his title, the director or the coordinator of that program, and expressed that concern that really leaves our board out of this. And so we are planning on discussing that at the March 19th meeting. So we do have a planned discussion. Go ahead, Supervisor.
So if I understand you correctly, other than March, every other meeting will be on Tuesday?
That's correct.
I would suspect that Assemblywoman Aguirre Curry would not be in concurrence, that we be left out of this conversation. But that's just my opinion on that. And so let us know what happens in March, because maybe we need to push that further up.
Well, particularly with the setup or the legislation that formed that, you know, it puts our Board of Supervisors as a member. So
Yep.
I think it has to be such that we can have a presence and a voice there.
What's the day of the March meeting?
I don't have it off the top of my head, but it's 3.5 weeks from now. So I can come back to the board if there's an issue, but if there's no further board comment at this point, we can open it to the public. Is there anybody in the chamber that would like to speak on this item? Seeing none, Johanna, do we have any in Zoom? So go ahead and close public comment and bring it back to the board for a possible motion or action.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve, I apologize.
No, that's okay, go ahead.
Okay. Move to approve the Blue Ribbon Committee Rehabilitation of Clear Lake with Vice Chair Rasmussen as the primary and Supervisor Owen as the alternate.
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. going to move on to our 7.8 item, which is consideration of section 19.3 of the Board of Supervisors, County of Lake, California Policies and Procedures Manual, Multi-Factor Authentication MFA Policy. And we have our Information Technology Director here for this item.
Good afternoon, Board. I'm Shane French, IT Director. Gotta turn it on. It's not on. Push.
There you go.
It's on now. As I was saying, I'm Shane French, IT Director. What you have before you is a policy, I guess, addition to our information technology related policies to basically create a multi-factor authentication section. What we're trying to do is enhance the security of the network. One of the ways we can do that is by implementing multi-factor authentication. If you're not familiar with this is basically, in addition to a username and password, an additional factor such as an application on your phone that displays a code. I'm sure a lot of you have seen these things. It might be a text message. It can even be a fingerprint in some cases. But what we're kind of laying out here is a desire to implement this widely throughout the county and basically in every system that we can, and the methods by which we might do that. It talks a little bit about the expectations that that we would have for employees to, protect the multi-factor authentication device that they're going to be provisioned, and under what circumstances we might implement the service for logins of various types. There is a section here about just expectations about having the device available, obviously, and then there's some information in here about conditions under which departments at their discretion might allow employees to use their own personal devices for this at the employee's option. Again, I mean, the idea behind this is to mitigate some of the threats that have come about over the years. This is pretty widely adopted technology at this point, and we're just trying to have a very clearly laid out plan here for how this is going to work and get this rolled out quickly once if the policy is adopted.
Thank you. Supervisor Sabatier.
I just want to thank Director French for spending some time with me, back and forth on email at least, just to discuss this a little further. Appreciate your efforts in trying to keep our system secure. I think this is a great step, and I'll be in support of this today.
Anything further from the board? Any questions for staff before we open to the public? Seeing none, I'll go ahead and open public comment. Is there anybody in the chamber that wishes to speak on this item? Seeing none, Johanna, anybody in Zoom? Betsy Kahn, you can go ahead and unmute, and you'll have 3 minutes to address the board.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Betsy Kahn, Upper Lake. I'm just wondering how this will affect the public interface with the county offices and agencies, since many people in the county do not have any kind of technology that would be able to authenticate, which is required for state and federal services, but we still have a lack of that capacity here for some of the members of the public. How will that affect us? Thank you.
Director French, do you want to?
Sure, yeah. I mean, I wouldn't expect it to affect anybody in the public at all, really. The policy applies to county employees, volunteers, contractors, vendors, but I don't even know that we could apply a policy to the public, right? But yeah, in this case, no effect to the public that I can see.
Thank you. And Betsy, this is really for protecting our systems being used by county staff. So I agree with Director French. Go ahead.
If I may add, especially in the world today with remote access and things like that, this is where the MFA becomes a real good tool for extra security. So,
Thank you. Any further comments in Zoom, Johanna? No further comment. I'll go ahead and close public comment and bring it back to the board for action unless there's any other questions.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the Section 19.3 of the Board of Supervisors County of Lake Policies and Procedures Manual, the addition of the multi-factor authentication policy.
Second.
We have a motion and a second by Supervisor Pyska. I'll call for a vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Shane.
With that, I'm going to go ahead and call our 7.11 item, which is consideration of a letter of support to reauthorize the Older Americans Act, OAA, and return federal funding to the Area Agency on Aging of Lake and Mendocino County. And we have our Social Services Director, Rachel Delman Parsons, here.
Good morning, board, or afternoon even. My name is Rachel Dillman Parsons. I am the Social Services Director and the Executive Director for the Area Agency on Aging. And as you know from our brief update last month, the continuing resolution of the Congress's budget on December 20th did not include reauthorization of the Older Americans Act, which funds the Area Agency on Aging, among many other programs. The funding is used for the Senior Meals Program, including Meals on Wheels, and this is vital funding that we would like to see returned to support our most at-risk seniors. And that is where we are requesting this letter of support from you. Since we represent both Lake and Mendocino counties as the Area Agency on Aging, we did bring this letter to the Mendocino Board of Supervisors as well, and they did sign it and get it off to our congressional representatives. Lake County does have, or Lake and Mendocino County, AAA does have sufficient state funding to continue to provide these services through June 2025, but that is taking funding that would have otherwise gone to these senior centers to be used at their discretion. So it is still a loss of funding, even if we're able to find a way to continue these services.
And Supervisor Sabatier.
Yeah, thank you for bringing this to us after our last conversation, and I apologize for not catching this earlier, but if we can update that last line before the signature to "we urge you to take action now." The word "take" is missing.
Oh, we urge you to action now. Yes, we'll get that fixed.
Unless that was meant to be that way.
I'm not sure.
Supervisor Pyska?
Yeah, I mean, just, we've had this discussion multiple times with AAA and in front of this board. We are, both our counties are doing this advocating, and this was the next step that we had planned to take, getting both boards to sign these letters.
Supervisor
Just
Sabatier?
as an addition, I apologize, since both Supervisor Pyska and myself are going to Washington, D.C., if it's possible to get a copy of that signed letter. I don't think we can provide enough of this to make sure that they're hearing and reading what we're asking for.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other comments from supervisors before I open to the public? And seeing none, is there anybody in the room that wishes to speak on this item? Nobody in the chamber. Johanna, do we have anybody on Zoom? I'll go ahead and close public comment and bring it back to the supervisors for action.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the letter of support to congressional representatives calling for urgent action to reauthorize the Older Americans Act, OAA, and return federal funding to the Area Agency on Aging to prevent irreparable harm to seniors, and authorize the chair to sign.
I'll second that.
Chair Rasmussen, if I may, your board may approve it and authorize the chair to sign as amended with the amendments.
As amended.
Okay, we have a corrected motion, which was seconded.
Seconded.
I'll go ahead and call for a vote. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Now I'm going to go back to our 5.12 item. that was pulled from consent earlier today. And apologize, let me get there. And this is setting as the Lake County Sanitation District Board of Directors at this point. Consideration of approval of a purchase of a 400 kW CAT generator from Peterson CAT for Southeast Wastewater Treatment Plant in the amount of $232,265.78, and authorize Special Districts Administrator to sign the purchase order. We have our district administrator here. I'll turn it over to her for the item, if she wants to make a brief comment.
Good afternoon. This item was pulled from my understanding because we didn't write in here that we were waiving the competitive bid process. And we're using a Sourcewell contract, which was in essence a competitively bid process, but we needed to state that we're waiving the county competitive bid process and going with a Sourcewell contract.
Okay, thank you. And I understand it was Supervisor Sabatier pulled the item. Do you have a comment?
That was the only reason. I just want to make sure that we are able to move forward with the appropriate motion, and I would request that County Council provide some assistance as to what the wording of the waiving of the bidding process would be.
I open to the public first. Don't believe there's any other comments from supervisors. Is there anybody in the public in the chamber that wishes to comment on this item? And nothing on Zoom either, so I'm going to go ahead and close public comment, bring it back to the board. The county council can provide assistance.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So the first motion would be to waive the competitive bidding requirements under the county's purchasing ordinance pursuant to Lake County Code Section 2-38.4, which relates to cooperative purchases.
So moved.
I have a motion
Second.
and a second. I'll call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
And Mr. Chair, I move to approve the purchase of a 400 kilowatt CAT generator from Peterson CAT for Southeast Wastewater Treatment Plant in the amount of $232,265.78, and authorize Special Districts Administrator to sign the purchase order.
I have a motion
Second.
and a second. I'll call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thanks, Robin.
Thank you, Robin. And that concludes our regular items. I'm going to go ahead and move to calendars. And I'm going to start with Supervisor Pyska, if that's okay.
Yes. Tomorrow, I have so many overlapping things. I'm not sure how I'm going to get through everything. I have an NCO board meeting, but I have a conflicting appointment. And then I have a meeting with some folks coming out of town from Integrated California Sustainable Insurance Strategy, Safer from Wildfires Framework. This is around home hardening. It looks like I'm going to figure out how to get to that one too. So all of my things are kind of piled up in the afternoon, so I'll figure that out. Thursday, I am traveling to DC. Friday, I have, again, some overlapping things where my insurance working group is meeting with Senate staff. But at the same time, I've got my disaster response training with the FEMA task force, so I'm going to hurry back to the hotel and catch the last couple of hours of that. The rest of the conference, as planned, I guess. Traveling back Wednesday, I'm going to have to miss a couple things Wednesday. Thursday, contract negotiations with the geysers, and then we have geothermal advisory meeting, and then Friday, the 7th, I might actually be able to make the Resilience Hub work group, but I'm going to have to see how I'm doing when things settle down. And then meeting with CAO Parker on the 10th, and then back on the 11th.
Go ahead of me.
Is that it, Supervisor?
Yes.
Okay. Move on to Supervisor Owen.
Oh, okay. So I was hoping you'd go first. So last week I had, since we weren't here last week, I had some meetings with constituents. I had a ladies' luncheon at Hidden Valley on Wednesday. Afterwards, we left, actually Supervisor Rasmussen and I left for Sacramento for a training for CPAC. And we stayed there through Friday. Took Saturday off, worked Sunday. This coming week, I have, I think we had Housing Commission meeting yesterday. Let me pick this up so I can read which one it is. I have a couple of meetings tomorrow, one with Nicole Flora, and that's for the Economic Development Corporation. And I also have another meeting, and I don't have the title of it, but I have the date and the time. I have some more meetings on Thursday, and Friday will be Planning Department. Oh, I just have down that the Planning Department's going to be closed. I also have the, I think the Middletown boys have made it to the playoffs, and they'll be playing tomorrow night in the playoff game in Middletown.
Thank you. Supervisor Sabatier.
So I'm gonna make an announcement, a couple announcements. Hopefully I won't get a email from Behavioral Health. I think we got the green light to say something publicly, but we, as the COC, we met with another COC, Monterey COC. I learned by going to CSAC that Luis Alejo, who used to be an assembly member, was the head of the COC in Monterey. So I figured let's go ahead and pick his brain on how we can navigate and best come up with better funding availability that we have been trying to get. And it was mentioned to us that we should be going after the encampment resolution grants. And we were under the impression that encampment resolution grant was more along the lines of kind of like the Santa Rosa cleanup that occurred on the trail out there, or some of the other things that we see in more urbanized environments. Well, it turns out the encampment resolution grant could be used for a single tent. It could be used for 3 tents. It's whatever we decide are encampments. And so we just got approved. We got $1.5 million that we are going to receive. And so our next meeting, I'm planning to put it on our COC agenda to create an ad hoc committee to start planning how that's going to be utilized. And it's perfect timing because we worked on the pick count. We know where people are. We know how many there are. And let's see how many we can impact. And I believe my recollection of the grant is we hope to impact up to 250 people. And so that's exciting. It's additional revenue streams that we have not seen in a while. However, on the other side, we're hearing that there may be some huge losses on HUD and the impact to funding for homelessness may be coming. We haven't seen anything yet, but I've seen, I think it was on an NPR article, could be up to 84% reduction in staffing in certain homeless programs. So that means either funding will go away or funding will be very delayed and slowed down. And others are talking about a 50% reduction in workforce in the HUD. So keeping an eye out just to see what that looks like, and hoping to have those conversations in DC to see if there's any better understanding. But I'm thinking DC is as confused as all the way down to the street level here. So we'll see what happens. The other one is I just put out the press release on March 13th, working with Supervisor Owen, as well as Fire Chief Willie Cepeda, Teresa Harberth, I believe I'm saying the right last name, from Lower Lake Community Action Committee, as well as the City of Clear Lake. We are looking to do a town hall to create a fire safe council and hopefully get people energized to creating fire-wise communities. And so it'll be on March 13th, which is a Thursday. It'll be at 6 p.m. in the Clear Lake City Hall chambers. Please join us. If you find the press release online, you will also find that there is a Zoom link. We are trying to make this as accessible to everybody as possible, as we need everyone, all hands on deck, to figure out how to reduce and mitigate potential fires. So those are the announcements. As far as my day tomorrow, I'm meeting a couple of times regarding the COC, and then I am taking charge as an alternate for First Five Lake County, and hoping to join the Lake County Fire Protection District later on that day if I'm still available. Thursday, same as Supervisor Paiska, traveling, and while the conference doesn't start until the 1st, on the 28th, I will be there to do some economic mobility leadership network conference sessions, and working on that. When I get back, which is Thursday the 6th, I did join a CSAC working group for childcare. With my involvement in First Five and the knowledge that I've gained through there, I wanted to make sure that Lake County had a voice in that. And so we're having our first meeting, I believe it's Riverside, Chuck Washington? I think it's Riverside. Riverside County Supervisor Chuck Washington will be taking the lead on that working group, and I'm looking forward to the conversation and figuring out what are some opportunities so that we can enhance our child care availability here in Lake County. Later on that day, a COC General Board meeting will occur, and then I'll be hanging out at the Clear Lake City Council, seeing what's going on. And then at this moment in time, I am clear till a CAO meeting on that Monday and back here on the 11th.
Thank you, Supervisor, and I just wanted to thank you and Supervisor Paiska for going back to DC this next week and advocating for us, and have a safe trip. I attended, going back to since our last meeting, the APC and LTA meeting. Attended a BVAC meeting that same day with Supervisor Paiska, and we do have a full board out there now. And,
We got a resignation.
oh, we did? I didn't know about it? Okay.
No.
Sorry to hear that. I met with, I'm not sure what their appropriate name, but I'll call it the Tobacco Initiative, regarding, I guess, an interview, just asking questions. It's one of the topics that will eventually come back to us with more ordinances related to that. I had a Mental Health Advisory Board meeting. I attended a CWA meeting that they had with Congressman Thompson's office regarding concerns for some of the ag in this area. I had my tour and briefing with Water Resources Department and their staff to get more educated on everything they have going on. I had my tour and discussion with Registrar of Voters as far as what they have going on. Attended a city council meeting. Went to the special LAFCO meeting with Supervisors Paiska and Sabatier on a tour of Canocti County Water. Then that same day left with Supervisor Owen for the CSAC New Supervisor Institute Session 2 in Sacramento. It was a lot of great training, and we did make some new friends and contacts from many other counties in California that have new supervisors. So that was exciting. Then I came back on the weekend. I had a team on the Polar Plunge, which everybody that was helping with that raised the whole budget for their entire year for this fiscal year, or this next calendar year, for them to run that program. Scotts Valley Community Advisory Council meeting last night, which next month we're moving to broadcasting and recording thanks to Peg's assistance. RCD gave a presentation. I'm excited about a grant that they're applying for, which if successful would place 10,000 gallon water tanks strategically in Scotts Valley for fire protection. Also, a second component of it is a technology called Meter Me, where citizens that have water sources, large wells, ponds, et cetera, can hook up to that. It would let the fire authorities know where water's available, where they can access it. So I think that'd be great if, the Resource Conservation District is successful there. Tomorrow, all day, I'm going to be in the Tribal Cultural Awareness Training through Kanokatai over at Robinson, so I'm excited about that. I have to speak at the Judges' Breakfast on Thursday, just regarding what my priorities in District 4. Let's see, I'm excited that we got two new planning commissioners coming. I plan to be at their swearing in on Thursday morning, and that will fill up our planning commission. Then I have a citizen science hitch training. I volunteered to help with hitch observations this spawning season. And then I'm going to be involved in the READ program of the first grade class on Friday. And that, yes, that concludes my report. Go ahead.
I want to thank Helen Owen, Supervisor Owen, and CAO Parker for also presenting at the judges' breakfast this month. I'm the host, so you were my guests. And just so that it's public, my next guest is Vice Chair Rasmussen, but I will not be there, so there will not be a Brown Act violation. He will be on his own. I believe I've requested Mayor Kramer to introduce you.
Yes.
I'd like to add one more thing too. For those of you that heard about the loss of the young girl in high school rodeo that lost her 3 horses down the canyon on Highway 20 last Sunday, we have a fundraiser at my ranch for her this Sunday. And we're going to be putting on yeah, it's really sad. Apparently there was a malfunction with the vehicle pulling it and caused the horses to go down the canyon. So we're having a fundraiser for her this Sunday.
Thank you for helping with that, and that concludes our reports. Before I announce the closed session items in title, we're going to take a 5-minute break. Well, I'm going to call the meeting back to order after returning from our break, and announce the closed session items. We are going to remove and pend for a future date item 9.1, which is public employee evaluation for Health Services Director. Moving on to 9.2, we are going to pull and also pend for a future date the public employee evaluation title Air Pollution Control Officer. The next item, 9.3 in closed session, will be public employee evaluation title Animal Control Director. We will, and then I'm going to take, in closed session, we added this morning extra item 4.2, which is consideration of an extra agenda item, adding closed session public employee evaluation public health officer, and we're going to proceed with that in closed session. Next being item 9.4, which is conference with labor negotiator. Item A, chief negotiator C. Torres, county negotiators Susan Parker, Stephen Carter, Casey Moreno, Pam Samick, Diana Rico, and employee organizations LCDDAA, LCDSA, LCCOA, LCEA, LCSEA, and LCSMA. Moving on to item 9.5, we're going to have a conference with legal counsel regarding existing litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9 D1, FERC proceeding number P-77 Potter Valley Hydroelectric Project. Item 9.6, another conference with legal counsel, existing litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9, Section D1, which is Portney versus the County of Lake and others. Moving on to our item 9.7 in closed session, we will also set as the Board of Directors of the Lake County IHSS Public Authority for a conference with A, Chief Negotiator Margaret Long, County Negotiator Rachel Dillman Parsons, and A, Szymanski, and Employee Organization California United Home Care Workers Union Local 4034. And we will now move into closed session once we have the technology video turned off.